Hello everyone and welcome back to the 650i. Today's episode we're going to be covering an oil change, sort of, on the 650i.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
What do we got going on?
I just need the oil change.
All right, this is an electric car. It doesn't have oil.
No, there's I take it in to get the oil changed a lot.
Notice that I don't say oil change. Super common issue with these cars, and it's not even an issue, it's just a regular maintenance item that needs to be done on these, is the oil pump chain. They don't have a dynamic tensioner in the chain assembly, and they just have a mechanical tensioning. So as the chain stretches, basically what happens is they get looser and looser and looser until eventually they can fall off. You obviously don't want that, because then that means that your oil pump is not spinning, and if your oil pump is not spinning, you have no oil pressure, and that causes your engine to lock up. So what we're gonna do today, the car's got 70,000 miles on it. We are going to basically do some preventative maintenance on it and check out how that oil chain is.
Where exactly is the chain though?
The what?
The chain?
I don't understand what you're asking me. There is no oil change.
What are you chaining then?
I'm doing an oil change.
Like on a bike, you.
This doesn't have that.
And we are going to adjust it as necessary. So a couple things that you'll need for this job. You're going to need to access the oil pan. So you're going to need a seal. For that, it's specific to certain X-Drive cars and non-X-Drive cars, so make sure you get the right one. You're going to need at least Loctite. BMW recommends that you replace the bolts, not because they're stretch bolts, but because there's Loctite on the threads and that needs to be renewed. So you buy yourself some blue Loctite and basically just reuse those, don't mess them up. I'd recommend a clean socket set because you're dealing with the internals of the engine. You don't want sand and debris getting in there after you basically do just some basic preventative maintenance. So the cleaner, the better. Some cleaning stuff, supplies. I would recommend you get a proper torque wrench so you can torque your bolts to spec. And also I would recommend you have sort of an impact gun for all those bolts, because there's a lot of bolts that are that you're going to have to take out just to take that sump off. And some sort of cleaning supplies, like I said before, but like a sandpaper or like a Scotch-Brite pad, just to basically clean up the surface of the lower oil pan. So that basically we get a good seal. BMW recommends that every time you take off the stiffening plate, that you basically end up replacing those bolts for the stiffening plate. I've done it a few times myself without it. I haven't noticed them backing out or coming loose or anything like that. So they do say they're stretch bolts, but I mean, I haven't had any issues with it, and also people online haven't had any issues with it. So basically we're gonna reuse those, and just the under trays and stuff like that has to come off too. So let's get cracking. Now we're under. First things first, let's get a light over here so you guys can see something. We've got a bunch of screws now to take off, because we got to take off that stiffening plate. But on top of that, we've got this insulating panel here. So we got to take all the 8mm screws out of that. Maybe there's a few 10s as well. I don't remember at this point. But yeah, we're gonna take that off, and then once we get that off, the stiffening plate. We got
the underside off. So there's your stiffening plate right here. It looks like we may still have to take off part of the transmission cover that's over here, just to give us access to all the screws. So that's going to be next. We got both the plates or the protective covers off. One's there, one's there. And now we've got basically the screws that are here. This is kind of in the way here. So we may end up pulling these off a little bit, just a few screws. Okay, so we've done some cleaning. It is a bit cleaner under here. I know it doesn't look it, but trust me, it is. So now we have to take off this thing. There's two clips on this harness here. I'm probably gonna need two hands to pull that off, but that's gonna need to come off. There was a clip for this over here. So that was clipped on to this part of the lower sump. So basically that's gonna be that's already off, and now we should just drain the oil, take out that filter, and then we can get started on these bolts. In your 8mm, take out the oil drain bolt, and nice and ready, and we're gonna drop and run. It likes to spill everywhere. That oil's about, I would say, 2.5 to 3,000 kilometers old. That's how dark it is already. So it's obviously not black, and it's still translucent. The other thing I'm going to mention right now is that it's before you drain the oil, it's always good to check, just like I'm checking right here, to make sure that the you have the right gasket, because if you take this off and then you don't have the right gasket, you're going to be waiting on a new one with your car on the hoist, or you're going to put it all back together and it's going to be all leaky, so that's no fun. So make sure you get the verify that you have the right gasket before you take this whole thing off and get yourself in a bit of a pickle. Okay, while we're waiting for this thing to drain, let's try and get this connector off. Definitely a two-hand job for a skinny folk like me. Ow! Connector is now off. I just tucked it up there so that it's out of the way, and now we can get to unzipping these screws. Now we're gonna get to unzipping these bolts. They're E10. I don't have the impact gun. I wish I had the impact gun. I have this, which will make it a bit easier. So we're gonna have to probably break these free. That impact gun, unfortunately, I just can't get a socket on it. will likely do is have to break all of them free. Alrighty, welcome to the internals of the engine, sort of. So here's our oil pickup tube. You can see that there's some stuff in there. Which obviously you don't want any. I don't even know what that is. But looks like some sort of a gasket or something like that. So we got that and a couple other goodies inside, so I'll clean that up. What we're here for is this chain inside. So you can see that it's definitely got some play. Some crap on my finger. So I think that's a bit much. Okay, so the camera died, so I basically just charged it. While we're charging it, I decided to do some other boring work. So I cleaned up all the surfaces of the upper oil pan to lower oil pan, so that we have a clean surface for installation, so we got no leaks. But now I'm going to show you guys how you can adjust the tension and how much you should really adjust it by, because you don't want to go too tight on this. Essentially BMW says 5 millimeters of play. I don't really have a way of measuring that per se, especially with the engine still in the car. But I'm just gonna go by what I see the other guys kind of ballpark to, like how much wiggle they actually have. And then we're gonna just go by that. To adjust it, there's a T45 over there. So there's your whole pickup tube. So over here you can just see that there's another screw back there, and that is your adjustment. So I'll show you how that's done right now. We got ourselves a clean T45. And get your pan ready. Underneath, a little bit of oil is going to drip out of it. And no oil dripped out of it. But there's your screw. I'm going to put that to the side in a safe place. And for this, I believe you have to tighten it. So let's give you a view of how this looks in there. Right, so that screw is now gone. As you can see, here's your tension right now. It's a little bit on the loosey side. I'm gonna go about and make it just like not even half Not even a quarter of a turn. Gonna do a little bit more. Okay. This looks like about what I see online. So now we're done, and now we can start to put everything back together. So now we're just gonna go put this back in. But it's actually in the threads properly. I heard it click, and now we basically start going left until you hear it actually engage into the teeth. We're gonna get the torque spec. I believe it's 27 Newton meters on this one. Okay, so we're gonna torque this now to 27 Newton meters. Okay, done. And now we can basically get back to putting everything together. So new gasket, we're gonna put Loctite on all the screws and put it on and put everything back together. Okay, so here's our gasket. Here's our pan. And we're just gonna take some compressed air, blow this thing off. There's no dust in it basically. And we're gonna just apply this gasket to it. Goes like this, which it does. And now we can take a zip tie or something like that, and we can just basically, just to hold this thing on while we install this. To our position. It appears that it's gonna go something like this. Like that. Now line this up. We gotta cut them zip ties. So you take your cutters. And just go snip. And snip. Okay. And now what you do is you take it by hand. First start by hand with that E10. And then you go crisscross the 10 foot-pounds or Newton meters. I'm gonna put that on the screen right now. And then you do a final torque spec of 27 Newton meters. Okay, and now we're gonna do the oil filter. Change out the gaskets, pre-fill the oil filter, and put it back in the car. Okay, so now we got the oil filter on and we're just gonna dry this up. And the next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to go on top and we're going to essentially just check our work. We wanna fill this up before we put any of the covers back on, just in case something needs to be adjusted or we forgot something, because we don't want an oil leak and then have to take everything apart again. So we're gonna put this thing down, fill it with some oil, and lift it back up, and if she doesn't leak, we'll put it all back together. So we've got currently just under 3,000 milliliters of Rotality 6, 5W40, one of the best oils in the market. Capacity on this engine is 9.5 liters. So we're gonna have to do this 3 times, this same operation. Looks all good. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna put all the shields and stuff back on, and that's basically it. We're just gonna go and reassemble everything, and that's gonna be it. It's all gonna be in the reverse order. These screws, they say 56 Newton meters and then an angled torque for the plate. I'm just gonna go with Ugga-Duggas, and that's worked for me in the past. So I will basically come back to you guys once it's all back together, and we're gonna be starting it up. Okay, everything is buttoned up now. So now we're gonna lower it and give it that first startup. I did prime the oil filter. I did fill it up, pre-fill it a little bit, so that's fine. I'm not gonna prime the oiling system. It's just a little bit too much of a faff. So we're gonna just start it up, and hopefully it all goes good. No worries on the back. Check underneath for any leaks. All looks good. So now all that's left is just basically drive it out, reset the oil service interval, and off we go.